So my uncle calls and he says he's dizzy and he's losing his balance. I'm like, Unc, you want me to take you to a doctor? He's like, no, I'm gonna look up the symptoms. I said, your symptoms are you're dizzy and you're losing your balance. So he said, I can't get on the internet because my arm is numb. I said, well, use your good arm and dial 911. Stroke's no joke. If you or someone you love is showing symptoms of stroke, don't wait because it might be too late. Dial 911. Time lost is brain lost.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phelan, a weekly program here on LSN Television, right out of Lancaster, Time Warner. And we're also carried by a number of radio affiliates throughout Fairfield County. And do appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us each and every week, and certainly the folks here at Fairfield Christian Academy that put this program together. Back for the second week is Teresa Carper. Good to see you again,
nice
Teresa.
Nice to see you too.
Was with us last week. She's with Safe Communities of Fairfield County.
Yes.
And an advocate of keeping people safe behind the wheels, and also in many ways an expert in this field. You become an expert when you do it a number of years. How many years have you been working these things?
Well, I've been working in law enforcement field now for 11 years, and I've been in traffic safety for going on 5.
Going on 5 years?
Yes.
Biggest surprise when you started in traffic safety?
How many people get very upset when you ask them to put on their seatbelt? That is true. That is absolute truth. I'm so surprised how many people are adamant about not wearing them. They feel that it's kind of an invasion of their rights. And I get that. I understand that. But the thing that I want to say to them is, well, doesn't your family have the right to have you home tonight, safe and sound? And doesn't your employer have the right?
I guess I'm surprised at that, too.
That is my number one surprise. I've actually had people just completely angry with me for asking them to put it on their seatbelt.
Wow.
And, yeah, they feel it's an invasion of their rights.
What about motorcycles? It seems that, now not being a motorcyclist, I have a lot of friends that are motorcyclists, but they've always kind of like, I feel very uncomfortable about motorcycles because the chances are surviving a very bad accident are pretty remote. Yeah,
and I'm so glad you brought that up because this is motorcycle season.
Okay.
And I will share something with you and your viewer. When I was about 22 years old, I was engaged and had a fiance killed in a motorcycle accident. And so not only was he killed, I had a friend, 2 friends involved in a crash, motorcycles again. One had a shattered femur, and the other one, fortunately, he and his daughter were fine, but they were scraped up pretty badly. What generally happens with a motorcycle is a couple different things. One of the biggest things from the motorcyclist perspective is a lot of times they're not trained very well. I rode motorcycles. I can tell you, I was not trained very well. I sold both of those for that reason. I didn't feel comfortable like you. Felt very uneasy, did not feel I was safe, not only for myself, but someone else on the road. And I decided to sell them. Had 2. The other thing is a lot of times, and for those of us who travel mostly in a motor vehicle, a standard car, pickup truck, or SUV, is a lot of times we don't see the cyclist. And what we don't realize is with a motorcyclist, their chances of stopping is not quite the same as what we have in a motor vehicle. They're on 2 wheels, we're on 4. If they skid, they're liable to go down. And once they go down, their risk factors go pretty high of being injured in some way.
Right.
We do not have a helmet law in the state of Ohio. And yes, if you're wearing a helmet, you are protecting, your head and head injuries. But once you leave that bike and you start to fall, you are taking a chance of being injured in some way or another. And a helmet is not 100% proof.
Yeah, especially if there's some speed involved. I mean, you're a projectile at that point on the roadway.
Exactly. What I am so glad that you gave me the opportunity to talk about, it's called Motorcycle Ohio.
Okay.
Motorcycle Ohio, we talk about riding smart. We talk about riding with a license, being endorsed. We talk about riding sober. We talk about riding with the correct gear. We talk about riding with, all those safety features that you can use to be seen and to protect yourself when you're on the road. Motorcycle Ohio, and you can go to www.motorcycleohio.gov and check this out. But you can, for a very reasonable amount of money, take a motorcycle course. They provide the motorcycles, and one of the closest one is Pickaway Ross. I believe there's one here in near the Columbus, Fairfield County area. But go on their website and they'll tell you all the different ones across the state. And the price is very minimal. And here's the neat part of this: you pass the course, you just passed your test.
Okay, so there's no secondary test.
There's no secondary test. And the good news is I've had several motorcyclists that I've talked to over the years who said, I've rode for years, I had a crash and I didn't want to get back on the bike, decided to take the course and was pleasantly surprised with what I learned. It teaches you how to ride a little more defensively. It teaches you what to do in certain situations. Not every situation can be covered, just like you can't cover everything in a motor vehicle. But there are certain things that you can do when you're on a bike that you can be more prepared for if you're made aware of them. With the gas prices going up over the last few years, a lot of people chose motorcycles because it's a lot cheaper to ride, let's say, from here to Columbus or back on a motorcycle than it is in a car, and even the most efficient car. But the problem is many people brought their bikes out and hadn't rode in many years, or maybe they didn't really get a lot of training when they got their bike, or maybe they're not even endorsed. And that's why we saw motorcycle fatalities about 3 or 4 years ago, just rise up out of nowhere and kind of take over some of the major issues of the concerns at the Ohio Department of Public Safety's Traffic Safety Division. But it is a big issue in this community.
Talking a little bit about teen drivers, how important is it for parents to model good driving behavior? It's
incredibly important. As you said, I've been in this business for years, and you'd be surprised. I do a lot of seatbelt surveys with teens involved, and what I find ironic is I'll see the teen belted, mom not. I'll see the teen decide to put their cell phone down. Dad doesn't. And he'll pick up the kid with the cell phone right in his hand or texting right as he comes into the school parking lot. Not here in this community, other communities in which I've worked. The thing that I think is we should all lead by example. We can pick any kind of topic that you want. And if you want people to believe what you have to say, you have to walk the walk.
Right.
And so we've had the opportunity to work with Ohio SAD, that's Students Against Destructive Decisions, who have worked with middle school students who kind of paid attention to what mom and dad were doing, and then had a conversation with them about some of their driving habits. They weren't driving yet, but they could see what was going on. And it's kind of funny what these younger people were coming up with that mom and dad were doing when behind the wheel of a motor vehicle.
What does a young person do if they are riding with someone that maybe is not using good driving skills, and I know, first of all, I'd say don't ride with them anymore. Have the courage to do the right thing for your own protection.
Exactly. That's the thing that I think is important, is that empower younger people to say, no, it's not worth it to me.
Right.
And to be honest, if it's a parent, now that gets a little sticky, but if you have a good communication with your parents, talk to them. Say, this scares me, this worries me, this concerns me for your well-being and mine. But if it's another student or friend, be honest with them. One of the things that we suggest to teens is they hate putting down the cell phone. Well, if you're a passenger and your friend is getting that important text from their guy or gal friend that they just can't miss, say, I'll answer it for you.
Right.
Take the phone and let them answer this text for you.
Yeah, and Loretta and I have to do that sometimes just because I get calls and she'll go ahead and take the calls or take the information when I'm driving. And these cell phones, because it's kind of amazing that that I've heard that when you're distracted, in Ohio you can still talk on a cell phone, so
Correct.
there's not an issue with that. But there is that distraction, and there's even instances where I've seen like people eating in cars.
Yep.
Women putting on makeup.
Yep.
People reading. I've seen that a few times.
And I don't get that. I don't understand that.
yeah.
I must admit, I can't say I've never had the cell phone, but
Yeah.
in my ear, I can't text, but makeup,
Right. All this-
Reading?
Right.
I don't get it.
It's a distraction.
Very much so. And I'll tell you something else that's distracting too, is when you're on the road, we all have a very busy life. And it's very, very easy to be thinking about something you need to do when you get home, or somebody that you might be upset with, or something that you're happy about. Please continue to think about what you're doing at the time. Make that your priority.
How many times have you been driving and you thought, I don't even know how I got here?
Yes.
Because you were so thinking about something else, you were so distracted in your thought process that you drove from Easton and you drove to Lancaster, and then all of a sudden you looked up, I'm almost there, and I don't even have a strong recollection of the cars that were passing me and these kind of things. Very, very dangerous. And I think we all have a
We all
tendency
do
to do
that.
that sometimes.
We're human, and you can only focus on one thing so long that your mind's not going to snap to something else. And I can tell you that I had a driver's ed teacher when I was, many, many years ago when I was 16, who said to me, you do want to shift your eyes. You do want to kind of deflect your attention sometimes, because you can get too focused. Now the whole thing is we've got very unfocused.
Right.
And that's because our world is very busy. We have so much going on, and it's amazing how we've become multitaskers, whether we were good at it or not. We have to be. But the sad part of it is that issue right there has been one of the reasons that we've seen motor vehicle crashes, take a jump up in numbers over the last few years. And it's because we are busy, and cell phones help us communicate. I suggest to adults, if you need to answer that text, pull over. Take 2 minutes and pull over. That 2 minutes is going to be a lot less time than talking to the law enforcement officer because of the crash and having your vehicle towed, and it's going to make a huge difference.
How much of a problem is it for people being tired? They're on medication.
That's a big thing. I think that when people think of being impaired behind the wheel, that they think of alcohol. Alcohol is a huge issue in this community. It really is, and it is statewide. I believe one person every 53 minutes across this country is killed as a result of someone who was driving impaired. And generally that is alcohol. But being tired or the medications that you take are just as deadly. No, you may not always show up on a breathalyzer test or whatever, but the fact of the matter is we in safe communities, we leave the enforcement to the law enforcement officers, and you're going to do your job, and you do it very well. What I want people to realize is think about your safety first. You can pay that ticket, you can go to court and serve your time if you are caught driving impaired or whatever, but you can't bring back a life.
Right.
Yours or someone else's.
Teresa, we're about out of time. Do
Yes.
appreciate
Thank
Teresa
you.
Carper with Safe Communities
Thank
of
you so
Fairfield County.
much.
Appreciate being, and we'd like to have you back one of these days.
I
It's,
love
and it's probably a good time when we're ready to do some kind of a special program or
Sounds
something.
good.
Like to have you back. A lot
Love
of
it.
good information.
Thank
Been with us
you.
the last couple of weeks, and do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you, the listener and viewers that join us each and every week. And again, the folks here at Fairfield Christian Academy that produce and put this program together each and every week. I am very grateful to that, for that. And all the nice comments that we get throughout Fairfield County. It's certainly a blessing and an honor to be your sheriff. Well, the clock on the wall says we're about out of time. Until next week, same time, same place. If you're out there driving, buckle up. God bless, and we'll see you right here next week.
American Idol, they asked us to sum up our life goals, and I said I wanted to be a loving father and a faithful husband and a servant of all. And I think the servant of all, that's the main one, and I think that's what we're called to be. And it's to give our life for God, to give our life for those around us, to give our life for the good fight. My name is Jason Castro, and I am second.